Welcome to Tribute to Legends. I'm Alexander. This channel is dedicated to honoring extraordinary individuals whose lives and achievements continue to inspire long after they are gone. Here, we remember unforgettable figures from film, music, television, and culture, reflecting on their influence, their story, and the legacy they left behind. Every tribute is a celebration of a life that truly mattered. Tony Wilson, co-founder and bassist of the legendary soul group Hot Chocolate, died peacefully at his home in Trinidad on April 24 at the age of 89. His contribution to the band helped shape its distinctive sound and international success. Alongside Errol Brown, Wilson co-wrote You Sexy Thing, one of Hot Chocolate's most enduring songs, and a track that continues to connect with audiences decades later. As a bassist and songwriter, he helped define the group's blend of soul and pop during its most successful years. Although Wilson eventually stepped away from the music industry, his work continued through Hot Chocolate's lasting popularity. After his passing, his family remembered him with a heartfelt tribute, while his son Danny spoke proudly of his influence. Wilson leaves behind music that continues to carry his name across generations. Moya Brennan, born Mary Philomena ní Brownain in County Donegal in 1952, became one of Ireland's most celebrated musical voices. Raised in a deeply musical family, she grew up surrounded by Gaelic traditions and began performing alongside her siblings. In 1970, they formed Clannad, whose international breakthrough came with Theme from Harry's Game. Brennan's distinctive voice helped introduce Celtic music to audiences around the world. She later enjoyed a successful solo career and collaborated with artists including Bono. Known as the, quote, First Lady of Celtic Music, she remained closely connected to Irish culture, faith, and storytelling throughout her life. Brennan also continued creating music while facing personal challenges. She died at 73, leaving behind a remarkable legacy. Her voice, rooted in Irish tradition yet embraced worldwide, continues to carry the spirit of her homeland to new generations. Michael Byrne, the British actor known for his work across film and television, died on June 20, 2026, at the age of 82. He became especially recognizable for playing Colonel Vogel, a Nazi officer in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Byrne also built a strong career in British television, appearing in productions such as Coronation Street and Smiley's People. His film credits included major projects like Tomorrow Never Dies and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1. Although many of his roles were supporting performances, Byrne had a distinctive ability to make his characters memorable and believable. His career stretched across decades and included some of the most recognizable film and television productions of his generation. He leaves behind a body of work that reflects the skill, consistency, and professionalism that defined his long career as an actor. Eric Paulson built a steady career in film and television, appearing in projects such as Runaway Jury, The Final Destination, and Mardi Gras, Spring Break. While he was not always at the center of attention, his performances helped bring realism and personality to the stories he joined. Paulson was known for approaching his work with consistency and professionalism, earning respect from those around him. His career reflected a dedication to acting rather than a pursuit of constant publicity, allowing him to contribute meaningfully across different productions. He also maintained strong connections within his community, and was remembered as a grounded person who valued his craft. Paulson died in New Orleans, Louisiana, though the exact cause of death was not publicly disclosed. His passing marked the loss of a familiar performer whose work quietly became part of several memorable films. Alan Osmond, the eldest member of the Osmonds, passed away at 76 after living with multiple sclerosis for nearly 4 decades. His life extended far beyond music and fame. He became known for his quiet strength, creativity, and deep commitment to family. Over the years, his illness changed what he could physically do, but it never took away his determination or sense of purpose. Alan learned to approach life with patience, acceptance, and gratitude, allowing difficult experiences to shape his character rather than define him. He continued encouraging others through his words, music, and personal example. His journey became a reminder that strength can take many forms, and that purpose can continue even when circumstances change. Alan's legacy lives through the people he inspired, the family he guided, and the kindness he shared throughout his life. Sylvester Stallone. The name alone summons images of clenched fists, battered bodies, impossible odds, and the refusal to stay down. Rocky Balboa and John Rambo became more than movie characters. They became symbols of endurance for generations who saw their own struggles reflected in them. For more than 5 decades, Stallone has represented the idea that defeat only becomes final when you decide to stop fighting. His career eventually brought enormous wealth, worldwide recognition, and franchises worth billions, but his journey began nowhere near the top. Behind the famous jaw and unmistakable voice was a childhood shaped by rejection, ridicule, family turmoil, and a facial paralysis caused by complications during his birth. Hollywood would later reject him repeatedly, forcing him into poverty before he wrote Rocky. Even after achieving unimaginable success, he would endure career collapse and devastating personal loss. His greatest battle was never fictional. It was simply surviving long enough to become himself. A difficult beginning. Stallone was born on July 6, 1946, in New York City, following a difficult delivery that caused permanent nerve damage to the lower left side of his face. The injury affected his speech and gave him the distinctive expression that audiences would later recognize instantly. As a child, however, there was nothing iconic about it. It made him different, and children often treated that difference as an invitation to mock him. His family life offered little stability. His parents, Frank Stallone Sr. and Jackie Stallone, had a turbulent relationship, and their eventual separation left young Sylvester moving between different environments. He grew up feeling unwanted and misunderstood, carrying an anger he did not yet know how to control. At school, his speech and appearance made him an easy target. He struggled academically and behaviorally, moving through several schools. Every rejection seemed to reinforce the same message, that he was somehow defective. Instead of accepting that judgment, however, Stallone slowly began transforming humiliation into determination, fighting to survive. As a teenager, Stallone discovered that physical strength could protect him from some of the cruelty he experienced. Anger became a shield, although it also created new problems. His difficult behavior contributed to suspensions and expulsions, while the emotional isolation he felt became increasingly severe. At one point, he attended a school in Switzerland, where he worked with young people and began taking part in theater. Acting offered something that ordinary life had never given him, a place where being different could become an advantage. When he eventually returned to America, he carried little certainty about his future, but he had discovered a dream. He wanted to become an actor. New York, however, had no interest in making that dream easy. Casting directors frequently dismissed him because of his appearance and speech. He was told, directly or indirectly, that he did not look or sound like a conventional leading man. Yet the same qualities that closed doors would eventually make him unforgettable. Stallone simply needed someone willing to see beyond them. Rock bottom. Before success arrived, Stallone experienced a period of desperation that sounds almost unbelievable in retrospect. He took whatever work he could find, including cleaning animal enclosures and performing small acting jobs that offered little money or recognition. His finances became so desperate that he struggled to provide basic necessities. At one point, he sold his beloved dog, Butkus, because he could no longer afford to feed him. It was one of the most painful decisions of his life. Stallone later described it as a moment of complete desperation. He also accepted an embarrassing role in an adult film, simply because he needed money. These experiences left deep scars, but they also gave him material that Hollywood could never have taught him. Stallone understood hunger, humiliation, loneliness, and desperation, because he had lived them. By the mid-1970s, he was still unknown and struggling to survive. Then he watched a boxing match that would change everything. A battered underdog stayed on his feet, and Stallone suddenly saw his own story. The Rocky moment. In 1975, Stallone watched Muhammad Ali fight Chuck Wepner, an underestimated challenger who managed to survive far longer than anyone expected. Wepner ultimately lost, but he refused to disappear. For Stallone, that was the revelation. The story was not really about winning. It was about proving that an ordinary person could endure extraordinary punishment and still remain standing. Inspired, Stallone began writing. He poured his frustrations, failures, ambitions, and memories into the story of Rocky Balboa, a struggling Philadelphia boxer given one unexpected opportunity. He wrote rapidly, driven by an intensity that made sleep almost irrelevant. When the screenplay was finished, Hollywood executives saw commercial potential. Offers followed, but there was a condition: they wanted another actor to play Rocky. Stallone was offered substantial money to surrender the role. For a man who desperately needed cash, refusing seemed irrational. Yet he believed Rocky had to be played by someone who understood what it meant to be overlooked. He refused the offers, protecting his dream even when doing so meant remaining broke. Rocky rises. Eventually, the studio agreed to let Stallone star, although the production budget remained modest. The film was made quickly and without the luxury surrounding major Hollywood productions. Stallone worked under enormous pressure, because Rocky was not simply another screenplay. It was his final argument that he belonged in the industry. When the film premiered in 1976, audiences responded to its humanity. Rocky was not presented as an invincible superhero. He was a struggling man who wanted one chance to prove something to himself. That made him relatable. The film became a massive success, earning hundreds of millions worldwide and winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. Stallone received Oscar nominations for both acting and writing, an extraordinary reversal for a man who had recently been unable to secure ordinary acting work. The same face Hollywood had rejected became one of the most recognizable faces in cinema. More importantly, Stallone had proven something to himself. He had not needed to become somebody else to succeed. He had needed to remain stubbornly himself. Becoming Rambo. The success of Rocky transformed Stallone into a major star, and he quickly expanded beyond the boxing ring. Rocky sequels continued to dominate popular culture, with each installment increasing his reputation as an action icon. Then came another character who would define his career, John Rambo. In First Blood, Stallone portrayed a troubled Vietnam veteran struggling to survive after returning to a country that no longer understood him. Rambo was physically powerful, but beneath the muscles was loneliness and psychological trauma. The character connected with audiences and launched another major franchise. Through the 1980s, Stallone became one of the most commercially successful stars in Hollywood. Rocky and Rambo established him as a global symbol of physical determination, while films such as Cobra, Tango and Cash, and Over the Top reinforced his action star image. Money followed fame. He could command enormous salaries, live extravagantly, and choose from opportunities that once seemed impossible. Yet the higher Stallone climbed, the more dangerous the fall would become. The fall. The 1990s changed everything. The action landscape evolved. Audiences developed different tastes, and Stallone's once dominant formula began losing its power. Several major releases struggled commercially, while some were ridiculed by critics. Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot became particularly notorious, eventually becoming a film Stallone himself regretted. Judge Dredd, Assassins, and Daylight produced mixed results, and the industry increasingly questioned whether Stallone still belonged among Hollywood's elite. The problem was deeper than individual box office failures. His identity had become tied so completely to the muscular action hero that audiences found it difficult to imagine him in another form. Suddenly, the qualities that once made him powerful seemed outdated. The man who had once been among Hollywood's highest-paid stars watched his influence decline. Younger performers were taking center stage, while Stallone's name increasingly appeared in conversations about stars from another era. For someone whose entire life had been built around refusing to be dismissed, irrelevance became another enemy he had to confront. The personal costs Stallone's career struggles were painful, but his greatest hardships were personal. Fame could provide enormous houses, expensive cars, and financial security, but it could not protect him from grief. In 2012, his eldest son, Sage Stallone, died unexpectedly at the age of 36. Sage had followed his father into filmmaking and had appeared alongside him in Rocky V. His death devastated Stallone and became one of the deepest wounds of his life. No box office success could compensate for that loss. No character could fight it away. Stallone continued working, but the tragedy changed the emotional landscape surrounding his career. His public image remained associated with strength, yet grief exposed the limits of that strength. There are battles that cannot be won through determination alone. Stallone could survive rejection, poverty, criticism, and professional failure, but he could not rewrite what had happened to his son. That reality gave a different meaning to the resilience he had spent his life portraying. Sometimes strength is not defeating pain. Sometimes it is learning to live with it. Rocky returns. After years of professional uncertainty, Stallone returned to the character who had changed his life. Rocky Balboa, released in 2006, was more than another sequel. It was Stallone confronting his own aging, doubts, and fading relevance through the character who had always reflected him. Rocky was no longer a young fighter chasing his first opportunity. He was older, grieving, and questioning whether he still had something to prove. That made the film unexpectedly powerful. Stallone understood that the story had changed because he had changed. The movie performed far better than many expected, and reminded audiences why the character had mattered in the first place. It also reopened the door to a new chapter. Stallone continued developing the Rocky universe through Creed, allowing a younger generation to inherit the story, while he stepped into the role of mentor. The transformation was significant. Instead of desperately proving that he could still be the youngest man in the room, Stallone began embracing what experience could offer: a second act. The later years of Stallone's career demonstrated that his story was never truly about remaining young forever. He learned to turn his history into an asset. In the Creed films, Rocky became a mentor rather than the hungry, unknown fighter from the original movie. The role allowed Stallone to explore vulnerability, memory, aging, and responsibility in ways his earlier action films rarely permitted. At the same time, he returned to the Rambo character and continued appearing in major action productions. His career also expanded into television and streaming projects, proving that his willingness to reinvent himself had survived decades of changing Hollywood trends. The man who once struggled to find a single acting job had become an enduring cultural figure whose characters could be passed from one generation to another. Stallone's longevity is remarkable precisely because his career did not follow a straight line. He experienced spectacular success, humiliating failure, devastating grief, and unexpected revival. Each chapter forced him to redefine what success meant. The fight changed, but he kept showing up. Never stay down. Sylvester Stallone's legacy ultimately cannot be measured only by box office records, salaries, awards, or the number of films attached to his name. His greatest achievement is the emotional connection created by characters who refused to surrender. Rocky became the man who kept moving forward after everyone expected him to quit. Rambo became the wounded survivor who carried battles long after the shooting stopped. Both characters reflected something Stallone had known since childhood. Life does not always reward effort fairly, and sometimes survival itself becomes an achievement. His own journey contains the same contradiction. The world saw a powerful movie star, while behind that image was a man who had once been mocked for his face, rejected because of his voice, and pushed into poverty. He lost opportunities, endured professional humiliation, and suffered a personal tragedy that fame could never repair. Yet he continued. That is why his story remains compelling. Stallone did not simply portray resilience. He built his life around it, proving that sometimes the most important victory is not standing above everyone else, but simply refusing to stay down.